Welcome to the resting hours. My name is John. If you have found this place, it is likely because some part of you is searching, not for answers exactly, but for quiet and what it holds, for a moment of stillness in a world that rarely stops moving forward. This channel exists for that reason, and for you. Here, we draw from the wisdom of the Stoic philosophers, from Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire and still found time to sit with his own thoughts and return to himself, from Epictetus, who lost everything the world considers valuable and discovered a freedom no one could touch, from Seneca, who wrote letters across 2,000 years that somehow still arrive exactly when we need them most. We do not rush through their words. We sit with them and let them work. We let them settle the way sediment settles when water goes still and finds its ground. Each session here is designed to guide you gently from the noise of the day toward the quiet that belongs to you, from the weight of thought towards something lighter, something that holds. You do not need to do anything with what you hear. You do not need to take notes or remember or apply. Simply listen and let it land. Simply breathe and trust the quiet. The wisdom will find its way in on its own, in its own time. So settle in now and let the day begin to loosen its grip, and allow yourself, just for this moment, to simply be here and breathe. That is enough. I am John, and this is the resting hours. Close your eyes for a moment and notice. Notice what your mind is doing right now, in this instant. Is it replaying a conversation from yesterday, turning it over, rehearsing one that has not happened yet, preparing for impact, running through a list of everything that could go wrong, and when? If so, you are not broken, and you are not alone. You are human, and your mind is doing what minds do. But you are also caught in one of the most exhausting traps the mind can build for itself: the loop of overthinking, turning and turning without end. Tonight, we are going to walk through what the Stoics understood about this trap, and more importantly, how to step out of it and find solid ground. Overthinking feels productive, and that is the cruel trick of it. We tell ourselves we are being thorough, responsible, and prepared. But there is a difference between thinking clearly and thinking endlessly without direction. Clear thinking moves toward a conclusion and stops when it arrives. Overthinking circles the same ground, wearing a groove deeper with every pass, finding nothing. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, and meant every word: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength within yourself. Read that again slowly and let it settle. You have power over your mind, not over outcomes, not over others, not over the past or the future, only over the mind itself. And even then, only when you choose to exercise that power with intention. Most of us never make that choice, and the mind runs loose. We let the mind go wherever it wants, like a dog off a leash in an open field, and then wonder why we feel exhausted when we finally sit down. The Stoics understood something that modern psychology has only recently confirmed in its research. Most overthinking is rooted in one of two places, and both are beyond the present moment. The first is the past and its unfinished business. We replay events, decisions, and conversations, searching for the moment things went wrong. We edit and re-edit scenes that are already finished, as if enough rehearsal could change the outcome somehow. The second is the future and its imagined threats. We project forward into every possible scenario, trying to anticipate and prevent pain before it finds us. We mistake worry for preparation and anxiety for wisdom. Epictetus said it plainly, and his words have lasted 2,000 years for good reason. People are disturbed, not by things, but by their judgments about things. The event itself is neutral and carries no meaning of its own. It is the story we attach to it that creates suffering and keeps us turning. And overthinking is just the mind insisting on telling that story again and then again. So how do you actually stop and find your footing? The Stoics offered a practice called the dichotomy of control, and it is as useful now as it was then. A simple but radical division of all things into two categories, and two alone. Things within your control and things outside of it. Within your control, your thoughts, your responses, your effort, your character, your direction. Within your control. Outside your control. Everything else, including the weather, other people's opinions, the economy, and the outcome of events already in motion. Outside your control. When you catch yourself overthinking, ask one question and answer it honestly. Is this something I can act on right now? In this moment? If yes, act without delay. Take the smallest possible step and let the motion replace the rumination that was holding you. If no, it belongs to the second category and deserves to be released. The Stoic move is to let it go. Not because releasing is easy, but because holding it serves no purpose except to exhaust the one carrying it. Here is something simple to try tonight, and it will not take long. When you notice the loop starting and the same thought circling back for the third or fourth time, pause. Take one slow breath and feel it move through you. Then ask yourself this question and answer it honestly. What is actually true right now? In this moment. Not what might be true tomorrow, and not what was true last week. What is real and present right now, around you and within you? Usually the answer comes quickly, and it sounds something like this. I am safe, and I am here. The catastrophe I have been rehearsing has not arrived, and may never come. Marcus Aurelius wrote 3 words that changed how he moved through the world. Confine yourself to the present, and find what is there. 3 words. But in those 3 words, The present moment is the only place where life actually happens and unfolds. The past is memory, and the future is imagination, neither of them real. Right now, this breath, this moment, is the only thing that is actual and within your reach. Let that settle now and feel what shifts. You are here and you are safe. And for now, that is enough. Every morning, before the world has a chance to speak, there is a window that opens. A few minutes, sometimes only seconds, between waking and the rush of thought and demand. Before the phone, before the news, before the mental checklist begins its familiar audit of everything you have not done, everything you should do, everything that might go wrong today. The Stoics knew this window well and used it with great care. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, began each morning not with ambition or urgency, but with honest preparation. He wrote to himself each morning and meant it as instruction. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself what is coming and be ready. The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and difficult. This might sound pessimistic at first, and it is worth sitting with. But read it again and notice what he was actually doing. He was not cultivating bitterness, and he was not expecting the worst. He was cultivating readiness, and that is something entirely different. By acknowledging in advance that the day would bring friction, disappointment, and difficulty, he removed the power those things had to surprise and knock him off his footing. This is the Stoic morning practice. And it is not what most people expect. Not positive affirmations, and not pretending the day will be perfect or easy, but honest, clear-eyed preparation for reality, followed by a conscious choice about how to meet it with steadiness. Think about your own mornings and what they tend to look like. For most people, the day begins reactively, and the mind is immediately behind. The alarm sounds, and immediately the mind begins its audit without pause. What is on the calendar? What is unresolved? What conversation needs to happen that you have been putting off? What problem from yesterday followed you into sleep and is waiting at the edge of your awareness? By the time you have made coffee, you are already behind, not in tasks, but in your own mind. Already tense, already slightly overwhelmed, already running before you have found your footing. The Stoics propose something different, and it begins before the world gets its turn. Before the day makes its demands, make yours first. Sit quietly for 5 minutes, even 2 will do, and ask yourself 3 questions that matter. What do I have control over today, and what falls outside my reach? Not what do I hope happens, and not what do I need from others. What is genuinely, actually within my power today, and worth my attention? What is the one thing I can do today that would make everything else easier or less important? And finally, who do I want to be today, not what do I want to accomplish? Who do I want to be when things get difficult and when they do not go as planned? These 3 questions shift the mind from reactive to intentional, from scattered to grounded. They do not take long, and they cost nothing. But they change the entire texture of the day that follows, in ways that compound. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, and the letter still carries weight today. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of what we have been given. Let us postpone nothing that matters, and waste nothing that remains. He was not speaking of death as a morbid obsession, and he was not asking for despair. He was speaking of presence, and the clarity that arrives when you treat each morning as something given rather than owed. You woke up today, and that is worth sitting with for a moment. That is not a small thing, and it is not guaranteed. Somewhere in the world, someone who had plans did not wake up this morning. Someone who had worries and arguments and unfinished business and things they meant to say did not get the chance to say them and never will. You did, and you are still here. So before the noise begins, and before the phone lights up and the messages arrive, before the day asserts its many urgent claims on your attention and your energy, take the window and use it well. Sit with the silence and breathe it in slowly. Decide, quietly and deliberately, who you will be today before the world decides for you. That decision, made before the chaos arrives, is the most powerful thing you can do this morning. Because once the day is in motion, it moves fast, and a mind without an anchor drifts quickly. Be the anchor and hold your position. Start before the storm finds you unprepared. There is a difference between having a thought and being consumed by it. Most of us have never been taught this distinction, and so we live inside our thoughts as if they are facts. We experience a feeling of dread and conclude without question that something must be wrong. We experience a thought like I am not good enough and treat it as settled truth rather than passing weather. The Stoics understood, with remarkable sophistication for their time and circumstance, that thoughts are not reality. They are representations of reality, interpretations filtered through our history and our fears. And interpretations, unlike facts, can be questioned and revised. Epictetus, who was born into slavery and became one of the greatest philosophers the ancient world produced, spent much of his teaching on this single distinction. He called it the faculty of judgment, and considered it the most important human capacity. The ability to step back from a thought and examine it before accepting it as true. He wrote, and his words have outlasted everything else from his era. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about those things, and nothing more. When anxiety speaks, it speaks with great authority and conviction. It uses your own voice, and it knows your history. It knows your fears, your specific vulnerabilities, the exact words that will land hardest. It says things like, you should have handled that differently. And they noticed. They do not really respect you, and it is only a matter of time. This is going to fall apart, and you will not be ready when it does. You are behind, and you are running out of time to catch up. You are not enough, and everyone around you can tell. And because it uses your own voice, we tend to accept it without question. But here is what the Stoics would ask, and it is worth asking tonight. Is that thought actually true? And can you verify it right now? Is it useful? And does holding it serve any real purpose? And most importantly, is it mine? Or is it just the noise of a tired and overstimulated mind, doing what tired minds do when left unchecked? Try this practice tonight as you lie here and see what happens. Imagine you are sitting beside a quiet river and the water moves slowly past. And your thoughts, each one as it arrives, are leaves floating on the surface, moving downstream. You do not have to grab each leaf, and you do not have to follow it. You do not have to analyze where it came from or where it is headed next. You just sit on the bank and you watch without reaching. A thought arrives. I forgot to respond to that message, and it is probably too late. A thought arrives. You see the leaf clearly, and you do not grab it. It drifts past, and the river continues moving without your help. Another arrives. What if things do not work out the way I need them to? Another leaf, and you notice it without alarm. You let it go, and the river carries it away on its own. This is not suppression, and it is not avoidance of what is real. You are not pushing thoughts away or pretending they do not exist or matter. You are simply practicing the ancient Stoic art of observation without attachment, watching without being pulled in. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly throughout his reign and his private writing. His Meditations, a private journal never intended for anyone else to read, is filled with moments where he catches his own mind going wrong, catastrophizing, complaining, spiraling toward conclusions that serve no one, and then gently, without drama, redirecting it back toward what is real and within his reach. He writes to himself like a patient teacher speaking to a student who keeps forgetting the lesson. Calm, firm, and genuinely kind in his instruction. Never let the future disturb you, and do not borrow its trouble before it arrives. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason that arm you right now. Read that slowly, and let it land. You will meet the future with the same weapons of reason you carry in this moment. The same mind, and the same capacity for judgment that has carried you this far. The same ability to take one breath and ask what is actually true right now in front of me. You do not need more information to face tomorrow, and you do not need everything resolved tonight. You need rest, and you need stillness that goes deeper than thought. You need to let the river move without grabbing every leaf that drifts past your hands. So let the thoughts come, and they will anyway without your permission. You cannot stop the river from moving, and you were never meant to. But you do not have to swim against it either, and you do not have to go under. Sit on the bank and watch from solid ground. Watch the leaves and let them carry what you no longer need. Breathe and let the river do the rest. There is a phrase drawn directly from Marcus Aurelius that has survived 2,000 years of scrutiny. The obstacle is the way, and it means exactly what it says. The original passage reads, "And it is worth sitting with slowly, The impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way forward. On the surface, this sounds like motivational philosophy, and we have all heard versions of it before. Push through your problems and find opportunity hiding inside adversity. But the Stoic meaning runs deeper than motivation and cuts closer to what is actually true. Marcus was not saying that obstacles are secretly blessings, wearing difficult disguises. He was not asking you to feel grateful for pain or pretend that difficulty does not cut when it arrives. He was making a more precise observation, and a more honest one. The mind that overthinks is often a mind that has decided a problem is simply unacceptable. That reality should be other than it is, and that something has gone fundamentally wrong. And the gap between what is and what we believe should be. That gap is exactly where anxiety makes its home and holds its ground. The Stoic practice is to close that gap with intention, not by changing reality to match our wishes, but by changing your relationship to reality and finding your footing within it. Think of something that is troubling you right now and bring it clearly to mind. Something unresolved, something you have been turning over without finding an answer, examining from every direction, unable to set it down long enough to rest. Now ask yourself this question and answer it honestly without flinching. Have I actually accepted that this is real and that it is happening? Not resigned to it and not defeated by it, but genuinely accepted that this is the terrain you are standing on right now. There is a profound difference between those two positions, and it matters enormously. Resignation says this is hopeless, so I will stop trying and wait for the end. Acceptance says this is real, so I will deal with it clearly and move forward from here. Resignation drains every resource you have and leaves nothing behind. Acceptance focuses what you have and points it in a useful direction. Seneca wrote this, and it has endured because it keeps proving itself true. A gem cannot be polished without friction applied over time, nor a person deepened without real trials. The problem in front of you, whatever it is and however it arrived, is doing something to you that ease cannot. It is developing your capacity for patience under pressure and for clear thinking when clarity is hardest, for responding with intention rather than reacting without thought. This does not make the problem welcome, and you are not required to be grateful for it, but it does make it useful, and that changes how you stand in relation to it. The Stoics were deeply practical people, and they had no patience for philosophy that did not work in real conditions. They were not interested in ideas as abstract entertainment for comfortable people. They wanted tools that worked in the real world, under real pressure, in real and lasting pain. And the most powerful tool they ever found was this simple and radical truth. You cannot always choose your circumstances, and much of what happens is beyond your reach. But you can always choose your response, and that choice belongs to no one else. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the worst the 20th century produced, arrived at the same conclusion long after the Stoics had written it down. He wrote that the last of all human freedoms is the freedom to choose one's response to any given set of circumstances, no matter how extreme. That freedom cannot be taken from you. and it never could be. Not by circumstance, and not by other people. Not by failure or loss or disappointment or time running short. Your response, always and without exception, remains yours to give. So tonight, as the mind presents its inventory of problems and unfinished business, try something different. Instead of asking, "How do I make this go away and return to comfort?" ask instead, "How does this make me more capable? And what is it building in me?" Not immediately, and not with forced gratitude that rings hollow, just as a genuine question, held lightly and without demand. What is this teaching me about patience and about what I am made of? About what truly matters when everything else has been stripped away? About who I am when things are hard and when nothing is going according to plan? The obstacle is the way, not around it and not over it. Through it, clearly and without flinching, with the full awareness that every difficult thing you have ever faced, you have faced and survived, and you are still here, standing on the other side of all of it. That is not nothing, and it never was. That is the whole thing, and it belongs to you. We live in a world that has grown afraid of silence and works hard to keep it at a distance. Every waiting room has a television filling the corners with noise and motion. Every car has a radio ready to cover any gap in stimulation before it can take hold. Every pocket holds a device capable of filling any moment of quiet with an endless stream of content, opinion, and distraction. We have, without quite realizing it was happening, made silence into something to be avoided and filled. And yet the greatest thinkers in human history, across every culture and every era that left a record, have pointed to silence, not as emptiness or absence, but as the source of everything that actually matters and lasts. Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire of millions and could not easily escape the noise, retreated regularly into solitude and protected that time fiercely. He called it going inward and treated it as essential rather than optional. His meditations were written in these moments of withdrawal from everything that demanded his attention, not for an audience, and not to be seen as wise or philosophical, but for himself alone, a man taking stock of where he stood and what he believed, a man listening to his own mind in the quiet so he could understand it well enough to govern it with steadiness. He wrote, and this line has traveled further than his empire ever reached. Nowhere can a person find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than within their own mind. Not a monastery in the mountains, and not a vacation far from everything familiar. Not a cabin at the edge of the world, and not a perfect set of circumstances finely arranged just right. Within their own mind, and it is always available without travel or expense. The retreat is always there, waiting without impatience. The stillness is always present beneath the surface, holding its position regardless of what is happening above. It is simply waiting beneath the noise for you to stop long enough to find what was always there. Think about the last time you sat in genuine silence and what that felt like. Not scrolling through something and not listening to anything playing in the background. Not planning the next thing, reviewing the last thing, or anticipating what is coming next. Just sitting without agenda, present and without demand. For many people, that experience is rare. And when it does arrive, the first instinct is to fill it quickly. The mind rushes in with its lists and its worries and its half-formed plans, and suddenly, the silence feels louder than the noise it replaced. This is entirely normal, and it is not a sign that something is wrong with you. This is what the mind does when it has not been given permission to simply rest without producing anything. But with practice and patience, the silence begins to change its character. The Stoics called this practice contemplation and considered it foundational to everything else. Sitting with whatever arises, thought or feeling or sensation or memory, without immediately acting on it, without judging it as good or bad, useful or worthless, something to keep or something to discard. Simply being present with the full reality of your own inner experience, whatever it contains. In that open space, something remarkable tends to happen without being forced. The thoughts slow down, not because you pushed them away or outsmarted them somehow, but because you stopped feeding them with reaction and they lost their urgency without that fuel. A thought that is observed without response loses its power to demand attention. It arrives and it passes, and the silence behind it becomes a fraction deeper than it was. This is the silence the Stoics were pointing toward in everything they wrote and in how they lived. Not the absence of thought, which is neither possible nor the actual goal, but the presence of something underneath thought, something older and more stable than the commentary running above it. A stillness that exists before the mental narration begins each morning and persists after it finally quiets each night. You have felt this before, and you know it when it arrives, perhaps only briefly, and perhaps only in rare moments that surprised you with their depth. Watching a sunset without reaching for your phone, or sitting beside water that was moving on its own. Waking before dawn, when the world outside had not yet started its noise for the day. A moment where the internal narrator went quiet without being asked, and you were simply present without commentary. That is your natural state underneath everything else. And it has never gone anywhere. Not the anxiety, and not the overthinking that circles without landing. The quiet underneath all of it, patient and unchanged, waiting for you to return. Epictetus taught his students that the cultivation of inner silence was not a luxury for those with time to spare. It was a practical necessity for anyone who wished to think with clarity and live with real purpose. Because a mind full of constant noise cannot see what is actually in front of it. It reacts rather than responds. And the difference between those two things is enormous. It judges before it has understood, and speaks before it has listened, even to itself. Tonight, let the silence in, and let it stay as long as it will. You do not have to do anything useful with it, and you do not have to produce insights or arrive at conclusions. You do not have to solve anything tonight or prepare for what is coming tomorrow. Just let the noise settle the way it always does when you stop adding to it. The way sediment settles when the water stops being disturbed and finds its calm. Let it grow still and hold what was always beneath it. And notice, quietly and without rush, What remains when the stirring finally stops? The Stoics had a practice that modern sensibility finds unsettling at first encounter, and sometimes at the second. They thought about death, regularly and deliberately, as part of their daily discipline. Not with morbidity or the kind of despair that closes a person down, but with a clear-eyed acknowledgement that every life has a specific ending, and that this fact, properly understood and not avoided, is one of the most liberating truths available to us. They called it memento mori, and the phrase has two words that mean everything. Remember that you will die, and let that remembrance sharpen what remains. Before you pull away from that phrase and the discomfort it can bring on first contact, consider what it actually does to the mind when it is held honestly. Think about the things that have occupied your attention today and what they actually cost you. The small frustrations that arrive without invitation, and the ones you invited without meaning to. The things someone said or did not say, and the weight you assigned to both. The worries about how you appeared, and whether you handled something correctly 3 days ago when no one was watching closely. Now hold all of that next to the simple and undeniable fact of your mortality, and see what survives. How many of those concerns still feel urgent, and how many dissolve on contact with what actually matters? Not as a way of dismissing what is genuinely important to you, and not as a way of bypassing real pain, but as a way of distinguishing what truly matters and deserves your finite energy from what merely feels urgent in the moment and then fades. Because the mind, left to its own habits and patterns without examination, will treat everything with equal urgency and weight. A genuine crisis and a minor social awkwardness can generate nearly identical anxiety responses if you let them run without question. Memento mori is the filter that separates one from the other and returns proportion to what had lost it. Marcus Aurelius returned to this theme again and again throughout his private journals, as if he needed the reminder constantly. He named emperors who had come before him, men of enormous power and lasting reputation, who are now memory and dust without exception. He wrote this to himself, not to be dark, but to stay honest about what is real. How many a Chrysippus, and how many a Socrates before him? How many an Epictetus, and how many others exactly like them? Time has already swallowed them all, completely and without remainder. Even the great ones pass from the world they shaped and leave it to continue without them. Even the philosophers who taught others how to face this truth have themselves gone through it. And this realization did not make Marcus nihilistic or despairing in his writing or his conduct. It made him present in a way that is difficult to manufacture through any other means. It stripped away pretension and pettiness, and the endless small vanities that consume a human life, if left unchecked. It focused him on what remained after everything superficial had been removed and set aside. What remained was simple and worth writing down. Be good in what you do, and do it with full attention. Be here in this moment, and not somewhere else in your mind. Love the people who are in front of you, while they are still in front of you. Use the time you have been given with the seriousness it deserves. That is the entire instruction. distilled from a lifetime of governing and reflection. The worries that feel so heavy tonight, the embarrassments and the regrets you carry, the fears about what others think of you, and the anxiety about outcomes you cannot control or predict. How much of your one finite and irreplaceable life do they actually deserve? Honestly, not as a guilt trip, and not as a way of making you feel worse than you already do. As a genuine and loving question from someone who wants your remaining time to be spent well. You have a limited number of evenings like this one, and no way to know how many remain. A limited number of mornings where the light comes in and the day opens in front of you, fresh. A limited number of conversations with people you love, and meals shared in good company with people who matter. Quiet moments watching the light change through a window in the late afternoon, when nothing is required of you. The Stoics did not count these things to produce despair or make the remaining time feel smaller. They counted them to produce reverence for what is actually present, and to stop taking it for granted. Seneca wrote to his friend with the directness that made him both loved and difficult. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste so much of what we are given. The life is long enough for everything that matters, if we give it what it deserves. The question is always what we choose to do with the attention we have been handed. Tonight, as you settle into rest and let the day begin to release its hold on you, let the weight of the small things soften. Let the minor grievances loosen their grip, and the half-formed worries begin to dissolve at the edges. Let the replayed conversations finally stop their loop and grow quiet in the back of the mind. Not because they do not matter, and not because your feelings about them are wrong or unreasonable, but because you matter more than the energy you have been spending on them, and your rest matters. You are here, briefly and beautifully and without replacement. Rest in that tonight, and let it hold you. You have traveled far tonight and covered real ground through the nature of overthinking and what the Stoics understood that we are only now confirming. Through the Stoic morning and the practice of meeting the day with intention before it meets you with its demands. Through the river of thoughts and the art of watching from the bank without being pulled under. Through obstacles that became teachers when approached with honesty and steadiness. Through the deep well of inner silence that was always there beneath the noise, waiting without impatience. Through the clarifying lens of our own mortality and what it does to the things we thought were urgent. You have done enough tonight, and more than enough. Now it is time to rest and let the work of the evening settle in at its own pace. Let your body become heavy and feel the weight of it fully supported beneath you. The pleasant and earned heaviness of a mind that has been somewhere real and is now returning to itself. If there are thoughts still arriving, let them come without alarm. You know now that they are just leaves on the water, passing through without requiring anything from you. They do not require your response tonight, and they will still be waiting if they matter when morning comes. And many of them, you will find, will not have followed you into the new day at all. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself on countless nights, a tired emperor in a world that never stopped pressing against him. He wrote that the present moment was always sufficient for what it asked, and never more than that. that the peace he kept searching for in better circumstances was never far from where he already stood, that it lived not in problems finally resolved, but in the mind returned to itself and willing to rest there. Your mind is returning to itself right now, and you can feel it. Feel your breath, slow and steady, and moving without effort. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Each breath a small act of release. With each exhale, something loosens that you did not know you were holding so tightly. Let go of today's frustrations and the ones that came before them. They have been noted, and they have been felt with full attention. They do not need to travel with you into sleep tonight, and you do not need to carry them there. Let go of tomorrow's uncertainties and all the scenarios you have been rehearsing without resolution. Tomorrow has not arrived yet, and when it does, you will meet it with the same capacity for reason and steadiness you carry right now in this moment. Let go of the version of yourself that needed to have everything figured out before allowing rest. That version was doing its best with what it had, and you can honor the effort, and still, with full gratitude for the trying, you can set it down now and let it rest. What remains when you release all of that and stop holding so much at once? Just this and just here. Just the quiet rise and fall of breath, moving on its own without your management. The weight of the body, fully held by what is beneath it, asking nothing of you in return. The soft dark behind closed eyes, open and without demand or expectation. Epictetus, who lost everything the world names as valuable and still found his footing on solid ground, said the highest good was a mind at peace with its own contents. Not a perfect life free of difficulty, and not a resolved life with every question finally answered. A mind at peace with itself and willing to rest there without conditions attached. That peace is available to you right now, in this exact moment, and not some future one. Not as a reward waiting at the end of enough effort or enough understanding. Not as something you have to earn before you are allowed to receive it. As a choice that is always open, and a practice that deepens with each return. As the natural condition of a mind that is finally, gently, and without force, stopped fighting what is real. You are safe, and nothing here will harm you. You are enough, exactly as you are in this moment. You have done enough today, and you can stop now. Let the silence hold you, and trust that it will. Let the music carry you where words cannot reach. Let yourself rest now and drift without direction. Breathe in slowly and without effort. Breathe out and release what you no longer need to carry. You are home, and you have been here all along. And so we come, gently and without rush, to the end of tonight's session. I hope something here found you and landed somewhere useful. Not in the way of answers or conclusions that close things down, but in the quiet way that good things tend to arrive when we stop forcing them. Slowly and softly, when we finally stop looking with such urgency. If this hour brought you even a small measure of peace, then it has done exactly what it came here to do. You are welcome back whenever you need this place, and the door does not lock. The quiet is always here.